Right. So there was a debate, a Jubilee performance, let's say, or event with Mehdi Hasan and 20 allegedly far-right conservatives. And there was an instance where one of them, called, I think, Connor Estelle, also known as Pinesap, he lost his job. Right. And
as a result of
his appearance and participation in this. So I will say that I dislike cancel culture, and I think that generally speaking it's a bad thing. But I think if we abstract from the particular case, because it's not enough to talk about someone if you just see them talking about 2 or 3 minutes. We can make all sorts of value judgments. We will talk about it during the segment, but I think that the most important thing that I want to talk about in this is ways of debating that are good, ways of debating that are bad, and ways of debating that are entirely self-serving as opposed to helping, getting some good points across, and also not allowing people like Mehdi Hasan look like the defender of Western civilization.
Oh, God. So is that what it's come to?
Yeah, because if you look at it, and in some people's minds, they're a minority, but in their minds, just being completely, just reacting by saying any accusation the left is directing towards me, I'll accept, and I will market myself as a caricature of what the left has constantly been bombarding everyone that people on the right are, or non-leftists are. This isn't helping. This actually helps the left. This helps people like Mehdi Hasan appear like the defenders of Western civilization.
Like the reasonable one. Yeah. Well, this was the thing. I saw people, it was going around that Mehdi Hasan got destroyed by some of these people. And I watched it and I was like, he didn't. He won. He made a lot of those people look pretty foolish.
Yeah. So we'll show you clips. But I want to start by saying that I really dislike this Jubilee setup. I'll start playing this here without a sound, because I think that there is something particularly problematic about this. So, you have someone like Mehdi Hasan. In other cases was Ben Shapiro. In other cases was Jordan Peterson. And they are debating a multitude of people, and they have they don't have enough time. In some cases they have 5 minutes. In other cases they have 20 minutes. I see there. But generally speaking, I think that these kinds of conversations need more time, and podcasts are uniquely good for this. And I think we are doing a good job about this, because when you want to have paradigm shifting conversations, it's objectively true.
Well, this is not conducive to actual progress.
So you see, he makes a claim, and people are gonna just run, as if they're in Hunger Games or something, to get a seat. And then they're going to have a limited amount of time.
It's such slop.
It's such a gimmick. It's just...
Yeah. Generally speaking, that's not
average far-right conservative.
That's not... that exactly, yes. But that's not the kind of setup you want for serious conversations, especially when they're conversations that are challenging paradigms.
Yeah.
Because when you're challenging paradigms, you want a lot of time to contextualize what you're saying. And challenging paradigms can take all sorts of forms. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Some of them can be sensible, others are completely insensible. Right, so I think that basically this kind of setup is uniquely tailored in order to make clips and clicks and impressions on X and other platforms. It's ripe for misinterpretation, ripe for misrepresentation most of the time. Some of the times people are very explicit, but it's not the kind of setup you want for these conversations.
To be fair, I thought that the Jordan Peterson one was actually pretty interesting. Like there were some good quality conversations in that one.
I think that this was a particularly bad one, because I think that this was atrocious, and it was a complete mistake of his part to accept being...
Well, that's kind of what I mean. Like, it really exposed the blind spots and weak points in Peterson's ideology. But and for that, I thought it was very interesting.
I'll be very honest. I don't know if it did.
No? Okay.
And I'm not going to base my opinion on a small clip on it about it. So that's what I said. All these things, what you're ultimately looking at is in every position you have sophisticated versions of it. Sometimes some people may not be very quick in their speech. It's one form of presentation of arguments that sometimes can sabotage your point from coming across. And you need to evaluate it from all sorts of things, because Peterson might be putting forward a worldview. It might have some weak spots that are exposed at the time, but the other person may not have an ultimately better alternative.
No, of course.
So that's why. And the same applies for political conversations. So what I'm going to say about this debate between Mehdi Hasan and Pinesap, I've already said on Symposium 28 on the linguistic subversion of wokeness, where we are talking with Bo and Josh about conceptual psyops and some traps that the left has set within discourse. A sort of push to lure people who are not leftists and to identify in the exact same ways that the left wants them to identify, so they can put up a fuss and say, hey, look, all these people are like that. And some people definitely fall into this trap, whether because they're idiots or because they're naive, but not idiotic necessarily. I'm trying to put it diplomatically. Or because they do it because it gets clicks and it's self-serving, while ultimately helping the left by presenting it as the actual defender of Western civilization. Right, so I want us to look at some two clips from it. This is someone called Antunes who said we should all carry ourselves like this: unapologetic, disruptive, smart, vision, and absolute political masterclass. I completely disagree with this.
So do I.
And I think that once again, it's important to not take it as an either or. So for instance, being unapologetic, I think sometimes it's a good thing. The question is, unapologetic about what?
Right, well, of course.
Yeah?
Well, like we were saying about the people in Epping being unapologetic about what they're standing for outside the migrant hotels. Yes, that's the point where you can't equivocate. There's no ground to cede there.
And that has been a big problem for, conservatives or whatever for a long time, is that they have been apologetic about their views and about their identity.
So let us play two clips
which
from it.
is majority white and should stay that
How
way.
does the United States... I mean, we've gone so off topic, but how does the United States look like under your... Sorry, what's your name?
My name is, my name's Connor. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Took a little bit of a doubt there.
Oh, well, I use a pseudonym online,
fair enough,
but
Connor,
fair enough.
How would Connor's America look? What would it look like?
Well, quite frankly, I think we would deport people who shouldn't be here.
I didn't ask about deporting. What does the government look like?
What does the government look like?
Yeah.
I would say, quite frankly, it's under a sort of benevolent leader, such as
Where does he
Franco.
come from?
It could be a kind of aristocratic class. Could be someone
who picks the autocrat?
Frankly, the people. I mean, we could hold a vote on it. Kings
So
were
isn't that democracy?
Well, sure. You can have a vote to get to that stage.
And then no more votes afterwards?
Absolutely.
Wow.
100%.
Wow. And if that autocrat kills you and your family, you're fine with that?
Well, I'm not going to be a part of the group that he kills, because that's the whole thing.
How do you know?
Carl Schmitt
Autocrats tend to kill everyone,
Carl
even their own
Schmitt makes
supporters.
this point very well in his work. It's the friend-enemy distinction, right?
Carl
liberals,
Schmitt, the Nazi theoretician.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't care.
Are you a fan of the Nazis?
I frankly don't care being called a Nazi at all.
I didn't say that. I didn't actually say that. I said, are you a fan of the Nazis?
Well, they persecuted the church a little bit. I'm not a fan of that. But
what about the persecution of the Jews?
Well, I mean, I certainly don't support anyone's human dignity being assaulted. I'm a Catholic.
But you don't condemn Nazi persecution of the Jews?
I think that there was a little bit of persecution and
We
stuff
may
like
have
that,
to
which is
rename
bad.
the show, because you're a little bit more than a far-right Republican.
Hey, what can I say?
He just looked like a clown.
I think you could say, I'm a fascist.
Yeah, I am.
1, 2,
Absolutely.
I'm just checking who's clapping, just to get my set of where everyone is on this.
Because
you know that millions of people are going to be watching you on YouTube and checking out who the fascists and the Nazis are.
I'm not ashamed of that whatsoever.
No, clearly you're not.
During the
During
the pre-war period, prior to World War II, it was only those parties that properly enacted the people's will. That's why they won. The conservatives were fat cats.
Right. So what no one has said about this is that Mehdi Hasan admitted that being a Nazi is not the same as being far right, where he said you're a little more than a far right Republican.
Yeah.
So that's the win on this. At least everyone's
pretty
absolute political masterclass.
Absolute
from the man
political.
Getting that gem out of Mehdi.
getting there.
Honestly, though, like that framing it as a political masterclass is absolutely nonsense. Because if you showed that to any kind of, I mean, sure, they're in America, but in Britain, if you were to show that to any normal person, they would take the side of Mehdi Hasan because they think the other guy looked like a lunatic.
That's the issue. That's the issue. And that's what I want to say is that there is a tendency for people to say, I'm going to express myself in ways that are the exact way that the left is presenting me, because I want to show them that I don't care.
Yeah.
Well, it's okay. Yeah, to some people you can't care, but you don't care what they think of you. But when you are debating, it's not about your interlocutor. Your opponent, it's about the audience.
Yeah.
And language occurs within a context. It's a social context because we're communal beings. And within that context, there are notions that are linked with good or bad. And what propagandists are trying to do, they're trying to link their side with a good and their side with a bad. So they want to make it sort of hip to the others, to some people. They want to marginalize, to self-identify with what the culture thinks is the synonym for evil.
Yes.
So when they do this and they recreate the sort of mentality of the prison courtyard, convict who exposes the neck, say, hey, I'm not afraid of you. You're not a threat to me. That's not the proper context. That's not the way you're doing a debate.
Yeah.
What it ultimately ends up being is saying this guy goes out and shows to millions of people who have watched this is I am exactly what the left is constantly bombarding us that non-leftists, non-Maoists are. And Mehdi Hasan comes off as the sensible one here.
Yeah, and do you know what else? The chap in the blue, Pinesap, is that his name?
Yes.
The impression I got when I watched that was that he was arguing with a kind of an invented character in his head. He wasn't arguing with Mehdi Hasan sitting in front of him. It was arguing with what he thought the left were, which is why he jumped immediately to, I don't care if you call me a Nazi. Mehdi Hasan hadn't actually called him a Nazi. He was just immediately kind of on it like that. Yeah. And it just made him look an idiot.
And there were also several contradictions. Like, for instance, he is going to be anti-democracy. I'll show you this. But then he said these parties were autocrats and they enacted the people's will.
Yeah.
Anyway, there are
He also says, I want a benevolent dictatorship that will not persecute me, but will persecute my rivals. Yeah, so not benevolent.
Yeah, but also that's Mehdi Hasan actually made a good question here. So how do you know you're not going to be smoked, right? And said, I'm not going to be smoked because I'm going to be on that side.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, lots of followers of Stalin believed that.
Yeah.
It didn't exactly.
And then he brings up the Carl Schmitt friend-enemy distinction, and it's like, and again, it's like he's arguing on the internet or something like that. And but also, really and again, there is a way, by the way, to bring that up. And Mehdi Hasan says, "What the Nazi theorist?" You'd be like, "Well, yeah, but he's also on every university syllabus."
That's what I wanted to say. That's what I wanted to say also, because that was a point that he didn't raise up. Is that when we're talking about political philosophers, most of them are very abstract. Yeah. And that's why they become very big names, because you have all sorts of a number of scholars interpreting what they said. Yeah. And you have left, right Hegelians with every thinker. But what happens here is that what I want to say is that everyone reads Carl Schmitt. Yeah. Right, he was a Nazi theoretician at some point. I think he sort of was sidetracked, or he.
Well, he was. I don't. Yeah. He never. I think he was trialed at Nuremberg, but he wasn't found guilty of anything, as far as I remember.
Whatever. But anyway, both left and right read Carl Schmitt. Yeah. Right. They read him. That's not the issue. And the friend-enemy distinction is, that's my personal view. I think it's abstractly formed. To a degree, everyone believes in it because every system has a notion of who is going to be marginalized and who is going to be punished. Yeah. So every system has friends and enemies. The point is, how do you define an enemy? Who is an enemy? What do you do about an enemy? How do you go about living in a society? What do you do about potential friends? Yeah. These are several questions that should be they should be asked.
And once again, this format is not conducive to that kind of conversation.
No. Yeah, exactly. That's what I said in the beginning. When you want to make a good conversation that is challenging paradigms, you need time. And you need time to contextualize what you're saying, rather than just saying, well, I'm too hot for contextualizing. So any bad interpretation you want to throw my way, I'm going to say that I'm it, because it's going to make clicks.
But it's just such a textbook. Textbook example of how not to do it was, he mentioned Carl Schmitt by name. That gave Mehdi Hasan a really easy in to say, oh, what, the Nazi? You're siding with the Nazi. Yeah. And then he said,
it's like,
I am. I don't
real
care
Nazism hasn't been tried yet.
Yeah,
it's
that would be a good out of context clip. Anyway, no, but it's just textbook. Like, because again, as I said, I if I was in this situation, wouldn't have mentioned Schmitt by name at all, because it's just such an easy in. You just say, well, all system has friends and enemies, and I believe I'd be on the side of the friends because I'm a patriotic American, and the dictator I'm talking about would be a patriotic American, so we'd be ideologically aligned. So I don't think that I would be oppressed. I may be wrong, because that's the volatility of a dictatorial system. But and he just closed the whole thing down. But instead he's like, well, I am an artist. No, I'm not going to say that, actually, because that will get clipped out of context. Anyway, you see what I'm saying, though.
But also, politicians lie. So, it will be dangerous.
Yeah.
Right. So I'll not show the second clip because I'm conscious a bit of time. So we have here, Pinesap was fired from his job. I searched here and I found that this was a job in tech, the tech industry. I'll tell you what job was Pinesap fired from. It's called, I think, VEUP Limited. Yeah, so it's a tech company. Right, so there was a sort of funding event. He created a Give, Send, Go to find a new job, and people have been funding him. I think he has raised more than $20,000
really?
At the point. Yeah. And he says here, fire for my political beliefs. And he has a donating page, Give and Go. And here we have him on Rift TV. He shares his experience on Jubilee. And we have the people there who are trying to give him a very charitable interpretation, and they also try to somehow portray this as being a bit more traditionally right-wing, which I think is not the case. I think we can say it's not.
No, definitely not.
Right. Okay. So there have been several interpretations as to what he meant. Someone says here, Pinesap's method, whether you like it or not, is a different question, was to disarm the slur. He found it to be absurd and ludicrous that such a term was being thrown at Franco and him. So he simply said yes and laughed in his face. Was he professing the doctrines of fascism as espoused by the pre-war authors in Germany and Italy? No, that is stupid. And says, these are my thoughts exactly. I care about being Catholic, not any particular ideology. And when Mehdi Hasan used the term as a slur, I wanted to disarm the way it has been used to harm so many of us who just want a better world with God. Our faiths will not be slandered.
Well, look, I can speak. I am a Catholic, and I'm also, I am engaged in the political arena, and I debate people on, shows not dissimilar to the one we're looking at here. And there's just this is just not the way to go about it. It just makes you look like a fool, and it makes it really easy for people to, we're on the radical edge of politics, and that comes with a certain degree of danger, because it does, if you get it wrong, it makes it really easy for people to paint you like a lunatic,
and therefore responsibility.
Yeah, and so really the strategy that we should be deploying, and guys like this one who is, I'll believe him at his word that he's a Catholic and he's somebody who cares about the future of America. The response is to come across as the reasonable one in the room, not to come across as some weird fringe kind of frenzied lunatic who says like, yes, I am that. Yes, I am this. It's to appear more reasonable and more representative of the general public than your enemy, which he probably, to a certain extent, maybe not him, but there are those in that kind of sphere who are. Because
there are Catholics who are more sensible than Mehdi Hasan. Yeah.
Well, quite, but I think Mehdi Hasan is a Muslim, is he not? But anyway, like Mehdi Hasan is a subversive Islamo-leftist who does not represent the opinions of the general public in America.
Don't give him what he wants.
Don't give him what he wants. Make him look like the radical, the lunatic, the frenzy.
Exactly. So that's why I'm worried about a tendency of people, which is particularly online, and I know I'll get lots of hate for saying this, but it doesn't matter. They are trying to portray themselves as the caricature of the left. Portrays any non-leftist as being. And this actually helps the left, because it helps the left propagate the same narrative according to which it is the left that is the last bastion of freedom against these people. And there are incentives for people personally to do it, but we have lots of people who have made huge audiences just because they went out and they said something that benefited them personally, but actually has harmed people who are worried about the leftist hegemony.
Yes, because it makes everybody else look like a fool.
Exactly, because what we're looking at is essentially, if we're talking about a population in which we have sort of 10% that is leftist, 10% that is right wing, and 80% that is a bit,
to be led,
a bit more. Let's say, I wouldn't say necessarily to be led, but in some cases, yes, for all sorts of reasons. Some of them just don't have time.
Yeah,
but they don't have time to give into constant understanding of discourse and how each person frames what happens. Right, so they're a bit more volatile in their, and a bit more, how should I say it,
fickle?
Not fickle, I would say they're a bit more, it's easier for them to be manipulated by narratives. That's why what the left is also trying to do, I think that this is conscious. It tries to say that to a very large extent, the majority of the culture is split. The majority is pro-us, but also you have another important segment of the population, particularly straight white men, who are that narrative, and they need to be punished for that in perpetuity. So I think if we want to maintain a sort of sanity and rationality in discourse, it's the response is not to say, well, we're going to completely destroy the word, any word, and the meaning of any word, and anything the left says we're going to say we are that, but we're going to say, no, I'm not going to allow the left to distort my view of the world. And I'm not going to blindly rush into saying just to seem cool what the left says I am.
And this is key, I think, because I think there's two ways of buying into the enemy's dialectic, which I think are wrong. One is what that guy did, where he just says, yes, I am.
A scattershot of the edgiest things.
Exactly. So I think, Stella, how you've just put it, to look cool, is exactly right. That's exactly, they're trying to look edgy and funny or whatever. But the other way that it's wrong is to say, oh, no, I'm not, I promise I'm not, and here's why. Because then, again, you're buying into their dialectic and they've already won. The right way to approach these issues, and I say this as somebody who has been called these kinds of words on television and on radio and that sort of thing, is to just say, well, look, people like you call everything that word. You call like milk far right, and you call air conditioning sexist, and you call the countryside racist and all that sort of thing. So coming from you, those words, they just don't mean anything to me. They did mean something at one point, but people like you have completely stripped them of their meaning, which is actually a bad thing in and of itself. And what I'm seeking to do as a young man is just speak about the concerns I have about this country, about the fact that people my age can't afford housing and don't want to start families for that reason, about the fact that women and girls are increasingly unsafe on our streets. These are not unreasonable issues. This is not fringe weirdo politics. This is just day-to-day life for normal people. And the fact that you are so intent on shutting that down by calling me words that have lost their meaning because of overuse tells me a lot about you, actually. And it tells me the interest that you're serving, which is essentially the interests of the power structure that currently governs us. Because if you listen to the government itself, to the universities, to the corporations, to the media, they all use those words as well for the same purpose. They always use them to shut down reasonable debate about issues that actually affect people. And that is how you do it. You don't say, yes, I am this.
I think that's how you do it, and that's the sensible thing. And I don't know to what extent some other people can do it. And the issue is that you have a microphone, they have a microphone, you can do it. Maybe they think they can. So maybe they're not going to be as sensible.
Yeah. But again, it's about presenting yourself as being the reasonable one in the room, and them as the crazed lunatic. And it's actually not that hard to do, because they are crazed lunatics.
Exactly. And I'm going to end with Carl's post that I agree with. He says, crazy how Mehdi Hasan is just such a flagrant liar when he knows the other guy can't prove him wrong. Because the other guy said that he hasn't been in London. It says, claiming London is a very British city, that the British aren't losing their culture, or that the English aren't a minority in London, are just not true statements. And it says despicable. So that's the point. When you have people like that, you don't rush to make them appear as the defender of Western civilization.
Yeah.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.